My beloved child. There is a reason this message found you today. Out of countless moments, countless voices, and countless distractions, you paused here. That is not something to ignore. Quiet your thoughts for a moment and listen carefully, because what you are about to hear is not simply another story. It is a journey through emotion, misunderstanding, truth, and hope. Every moment matters. Stay with this story until the very end, because every piece connects to what comes next. Your soulmate recently discovered something about you, something they never expected to learn. It was not a rumor that arrived with loud voices. It was not an announcement that everyone celebrated. It came quietly, almost unnoticed, like a single page turning in a room filled with silence. Yet that one discovery carried enough weight to shake emotions they had kept hidden for a very long time. For a while, they simply sat with their thoughts. They replayed every conversation they could remember. Every smile. Every goodbye. Every moment when they wondered what was really happening inside your heart. Questions they had buried suddenly returned. Pieces that never seemed to fit together began searching for a place. At first, they felt deeply unsettled. Not because they stopped caring, but because they realized there was so much they never understood. Sometimes the hardest truth is not discovering that someone changed. Sometimes it is realizing you never truly saw what they were carrying all along. As the hours passed, your soulmate looked back at moments they once dismissed. Small gestures suddenly appeared meaningful. Words they barely noticed began sounding completely different inside their memory. They wondered whether your silence had been protecting something instead of hiding something. The more they reflected, the more they realized that assumptions had quietly built invisible walls between both of you. Those walls were never made from anger. They were built from unanswered questions, missed timing, and feelings that neither heart fully expressed. There was one memory that refused to leave their mind. It was a simple moment. Nothing dramatic happened. No one else would have noticed anything unusual. Yet now, looking back, they saw the expression on your face differently. They recognized a quiet kindness they had overlooked. They remembered a hesitation in your voice that suddenly made perfect sense. That realization changed everything. For the first time in a long while, they stopped asking what they wanted and started asking what you might have been feeling all this time. Their heart became unexpectedly heavy. Not because hope disappeared. Because understanding had finally arrived. Sometimes understanding weighs more than confusion. While the world around them continued moving as if nothing had changed, an invisible conversation continued inside their heart. Every answer created another question. Every memory uncovered another hidden detail. It felt as though they were discovering an entirely different chapter of a story they believed they had already finished reading. If this story feels strangely familiar, don't rush ahead. Every detail matters, because the next realization became even more unexpected. As evening approached, something remarkable happened. Instead of allowing disappointment to define their emotions, they chose reflection. Instead of blaming the past, they examined it. They realized that people often carry silent battles that cannot be seen from the outside. What appeared distant may have been uncertainty. What appeared cold may have been fear. What appeared like indifference may have been someone trying to protect their own heart. That thought softened everything. For the first time, they stopped imagining the worst and started believing there could be another explanation. It did not erase every question. But it opened a door that had been closed for far too long. They quietly wondered what might happen if both hearts finally stopped hiding behind assumptions. Could everything look different? Could conversations become honest? Could silence finally give way to understanding? Those questions stayed with them long after the day ended. And without realizing it, they made a quiet promise to themselves. Before reaching another conclusion, before believing another assumption, before allowing another misunderstanding to grow, they would search for the complete truth. Because sometimes the biggest turning point in any relationship is not a dramatic event. It is the moment someone decides to understand before they decide to judge. That decision became the beginning of something neither of you expected. And what happened after that would surprise even them. A quiet shift had already begun, even though no one else could see it. The silence around your soulmate no longer felt empty, it felt full of questions waiting for answers. They carried your name in their thoughts more often than before, not because they wanted to relive the past, but because they could no longer ignore what had been placed on their heart. They realized that the story they had believed for so long was missing an important chapter. If you have stayed with this story until now, keep listening carefully, because every moment leads to the next piece of the journey. The discovery they made continued to echo in their mind. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Yet it refused to disappear. Every ordinary moment reminded them of something connected to you. A familiar place, an old conversation, a quiet evening. Everything seemed to point back to the same question: what if I misunderstood everything? That single question became impossible to escape. For the first time in a long while, they stopped looking for reasons to move forward without you. Instead, they began searching for reasons they may have overlooked your true intentions. Every memory returned with a different meaning. Words that once seemed ordinary now carried unexpected emotion. They realized that sometimes the heart speaks softly, and only later do we understand what it was trying to say. As these thoughts grew stronger, something inside them began to change. Their frustration slowly gave way to reflection. Their disappointment transformed into curiosity. Instead of assuming they knew your entire story, they admitted there were pieces they had never taken the time to understand. That realization humbled them. They found themselves wishing they had asked one more question. They wished they had listened a little longer. They wished they had noticed the quiet moments instead of waiting for dramatic ones. Then another unexpected realization appeared. What they had learned about you was only part of the picture. There was something even more meaningful hiding beneath the surface. They began recognizing how much strength it must have taken for you to continue moving forward through situations they never fully understood. Suddenly, your silence no longer looked like distance. It looked like patience. Your hesitation no longer appeared uncertain. It looked thoughtful. The image they carried of you started changing piece by piece. The more they reflected, the more they felt an unexpected sense of respect growing inside their heart. That feeling surprised them more than anything else. They had expected the truth to push them away. Instead, it quietly pulled them closer. They realized that genuine understanding doesn't happen in a single conversation. It grows when someone chooses to see beyond assumptions. That choice changed the direction of their thoughts completely. They no longer wanted to focus on what had gone wrong. They wanted to discover what could still become right. Hope returned gently, almost unnoticed. Not because every answer had arrived, but because they finally believed the story was not over. Deep inside, they felt that another conversation, another opportunity, another unexpected moment could change everything they believed about the future. And while they could not yet predict what would happen next, one thing became certain. The person who had been deeply upset after learning something about you was no longer controlled by confusion. They were now guided by understanding. Little did they know, the very next step they were about to take would reveal something even more surprising, something that neither of you saw coming, and it would reshape everything they thought they knew. Not every turning point begins with a conversation. Sometimes it begins with a quiet decision that no one else notices. That was exactly what happened next. Your soulmate reached a moment where they could no longer rely on assumptions. They decided that if they truly wanted peace, they had to face the truth with an open heart. What they discovered during that journey became far more meaningful than they ever imagined. The more they reflected on everything they had learned about you, the more they recognized that appearances rarely tell the complete story. They remembered moments when they had misunderstood your silence, your patience, and even your distance. Looking back, they realized those moments were never empty. They were filled with emotions that had simply gone unnoticed. One evening, while thinking about everything that had changed, they found themselves smiling at a memory they had almost forgotten. It was a small moment that seemed ordinary at the time, a conversation, a glance, a simple gesture. Yet now it carried an entirely different meaning. For the first time, they saw that moment through a heart filled with understanding instead of uncertainty. That single realization became the beginning of a completely new perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" they began asking, "What was this trying to teach me?" That question transformed everything. Every answer led them closer to appreciating the person you truly are rather than the version they had imagined. They began recognizing your quiet strength, your kindness, and the way you continued moving forward even when life became difficult. Those qualities, once overlooked, now stood out more clearly than ever before. As these thoughts settled into their heart, they understood something powerful. Real connection is not built on perfect timing. It is built on honest understanding. They realized that genuine care grows stronger when two people are willing to see beyond misunderstandings. That insight brought them a sense of peace they had not felt in a long time. Then something unexpected happened. Without planning it, they started imagining what a future conversation with you might look like. Not to revisit old confusion, but to begin a new chapter with greater honesty and respect. They wondered how different everything could become if both hearts spoke with openness instead of hesitation. For the first time in a very long while, hope felt stronger than doubt. The disappointment that once filled their thoughts had quietly disappeared. In its place was a calm determination to value what truly mattered. They realized that some people enter our lives for a reason far greater than we understand at first. Sometimes it takes time, reflection, and unexpected discoveries before the heart finally sees what has been there all along. As they continued this journey, one final piece of the puzzle slowly came into view. It was not another surprise about your past. It was a discovery about their own heart. They finally understood that what had upset them in the beginning had become the very reason they learned compassion, patience, and deeper appreciation. What once felt like a setback had quietly become the foundation for something far more meaningful. And just when they believed they had uncovered the entire truth, one more unexpected moment appeared on the horizon, a moment that would bring both stories closer together in a way neither of you could have predicted. The next chapter would reveal why every misunderstanding, every unanswered question, and every quiet moment had been leading to this remarkable turning point all along. The story had reached a place where everything seemed quiet, yet beneath that silence, everything was changing. Neither you nor your soulmate could see the full picture, but every step, every memory, and every unanswered question had been leading toward this very moment. Sometimes the greatest transformations happen without noise, and this was one of those moments. Your soulmate finally understood that the truth they had discovered about you was never meant to create distance. It was meant to remove the misunderstanding that had quietly stood between two hearts for far too long. The disappointment they first experienced slowly transformed into respect. The uncertainty that once clouded their thoughts was replaced by a calm sense of clarity. Then one ordinary day became unforgettable. They came across something that reminded them of you. It was simple, nothing extraordinary to anyone else, but for them, it carried extraordinary meaning. In an instant, they remembered not just who you were, but how consistently you had shown kindness, patience, and quiet strength. They realized those qualities had always been there. They simply had not recognized their value before. That realization changed the direction of every thought they had about the future. Instead of wondering whether the connection had been lost, they began wondering how they could honor what they had finally come to understand. They no longer wanted to hold on to assumptions. They wanted to hold on to truth. As the days passed, their confidence grew. They stopped allowing old misunderstandings to define the story. They accepted that every meaningful relationship faces moments of confusion, but what truly matters is the willingness to learn, to grow, and to see each other with greater compassion. One memory after another returned, but this time each memory carried hope instead of regret. The conversations they once questioned now felt genuine. The silence they once misunderstood now felt meaningful. The distance they once feared now looked like a season that had prepared both hearts for greater understanding. That unexpected perspective became the greatest surprise of all. Your soulmate realized they had been searching for answers in the wrong places. The answer was never hidden in dramatic moments. It had always been present in the quiet consistency of your character. They smiled as they recognized something that had escaped them for so long. Real connections are not built through perfect circumstances. They are built through honesty, grace, patience, and the courage to understand one another. With that realization, a sense of peace settled over their heart. The weight they had carried for so long finally became lighter. Instead of focusing on what could have been, they became grateful for everything they had learned along the journey. They quietly made one final promise to themselves. If another opportunity ever arrived, they would choose understanding before assumption. They would choose patience before judgment. They would choose honesty before fear. That promise became the beginning of a completely different chapter. And somewhere ahead, beyond everything that had already happened, a new conversation, a new beginning, and a new understanding were waiting, proving that sometimes the most meaningful endings are actually the first pages of a beautiful new story. A new chapter quietly unfolded, and this time it was different from everything that came before. There were no dramatic announcements, no grand gestures, and no sudden miracles. Instead, there was something far more powerful, a heart that had finally chosen understanding over assumption. That single choice changed the direction of the entire story. Your soulmate could no longer ignore the lessons they had learned after discovering the truth about you. The disappointment that once filled their thoughts had completely faded. In its place was a growing appreciation for the person you had always been. They realized that the qualities they admired most were not loud or obvious. They were found in your patience, your resilience, your kindness, and your quiet determination to keep moving forward even when life became uncertain. As these realizations settled into their heart, they began noticing something unexpected. Every memory that once carried confusion now carried clarity. Every unanswered question now pointed toward understanding. Every moment they had doubted suddenly revealed a lesson they had overlooked. It felt as though an entirely new story had been hiding inside the old one all along. That discovery brought them a sense of peace they had not experienced in a very long time. They stopped searching for perfect explanations and started appreciating genuine character. They understood that people are not defined by a single moment or a single misunderstanding. They are revealed through consistency, compassion, and the choices they make when no one else is watching. One quiet afternoon, they found themselves thinking about the future instead of the past. That was something new. For so long, their thoughts had been trapped inside yesterday's questions. Now, for the first time, they imagined tomorrow with hope instead of hesitation. They wondered what could happen if both hearts carried the wisdom they had gained from this journey. They imagined conversations built on honesty. Moments filled with patience. Silence that no longer created distance but brought peace. Those thoughts became stronger with every passing day. Then another realization gently entered their heart. Sometimes the greatest gift is not finding someone new. It is learning to truly see someone who has been misunderstood. That thought stayed with them. It reminded them that meaningful relationships are strengthened not by perfection, but by grace, humility, and the willingness to keep learning. Looking back, they understood why this experience had affected them so deeply. It was never just about what they learned about you. It was about what they learned about themselves. They discovered the importance of listening before reaching conclusions. They discovered the value of patience over haste. Most importantly, they discovered that understanding another person's heart often begins with quiet reflection. As the journey continued, they felt ready to leave behind every unnecessary burden that had once clouded their vision. The story that began with disappointment had become a story of growth. The confusion that once separated two hearts had become the lesson that brought greater wisdom. And as they stepped into this new chapter, they carried one simple belief with them. When truth is met with compassion, even the most unexpected moments can become the beginning of something beautiful. With that belief guiding their heart, they moved forward with renewed hope, knowing that every challenge had prepared them for a future built not on assumptions, but on understanding, trust, and genuine appreciation. The journey was no longer about what had gone wrong, it was about everything that could now go right.